Hey guys, Justin here with JHart Modelworks. So I am working on the Ferrari Roma Spider from Alpha Models. I'm having a blast with it. The car is in color. I have the carbon fiber decals down on the side skirts as well as the front lip. Now I haven't clear coated the car yet. I'm waiting until I do the carbon fiber on the rear diffuser so I can spray my 2K over everything kind of at the same time instead of mixing two different batches of 2K. However, I'm looking at Alpha Models suggestions, and there are 19 carbon fiber decals that make up the rear diffuser, and the instructions are pretty much just a decal number and a small line that points to an area on the diffuser. It's a little vague, so I figured it might be a good idea to do a video showing how I go about putting these down, so that if anyone else is looking at this and feeling a little overwhelmed, kind of like I am now, they'll at least have this reference to look at, and maybe it might be somewhat helpful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this camera turned around and let's get started. Alright guys, before we get started, let's discuss all the things that we're going to need in order to carbon fiber this diffuser. For starters, we're going to need our carbon fiber decals. I know that's kind of a duh, Justin. That's the whole point of the video, but we're going to be thorough here. You will be needing to use pretty much all of these carbon bits, with the exception of the steering wheel ones. But I believe we're using all 19 of these. We will need some form of cutting implements. Hobby knife, scalpel, scissors. Really only need one. I prefer the scalpel because it's really sharp and very accurate, but any of these will work. We're going to need some water. You want your water to be warm. The water slide decals react much better to warm water than they do cold. And to keep my decal water warm for long periods of time, I like to use one of these electric coffee warmers. You can pick these up fairly cheap off of Amazon. We're going to need some solutions. I like to use Microset and Microsol. Microset's good for keeping the surface wet and helping you position the decal, and then it helps to lock it down. Microsol is more of a solvent-based product, and this is more aggressive. It is used to soften that decal and make it conform to your surfaces. Now, if for some reason Microsol and Microset don't work, I will sometimes break into the ultimate setting solutions from UMP Retail, and I actually end up using the extra strong. But this is extremely aggressive. I've found that it can hurt decals sometimes, so I try to avoid using these. The normal and the strong are usually pretty good if this is all you've got. These are actually really good decal solutions, but I just kind of grew up on Microsol and Microset, so that's what I tend to stick with. Along with your decal solutions, you will want some form of heat. This is a fairly cheap little heat gun. I picked it up off of Amazon. I can't remember how much it was, but it wasn't crazy. If you don't have one of these, a hairdryer is more than adequate for what we're doing. And to apply our solutions, we're going to want a brush. And to help us position, we may also end up using a silicone brush. You don't have to have one of these, but they are pretty helpful sometimes. You will want a brush for the solutions. And to remove our excess, we're going to use some Q-tips, and just to help us brush things down and get things to conform, as well as remove the extra moisture. We can also use a paper towel if necessary, but for the most part, just a Q-tip or some form of cotton swab will do. So that's going to cover it for our supplies. Let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick heads up. If for some reason I'm out of frame or I really look like I'm doing this from a weird angle, we're having some thunderstorms and I have a ferocious Judith under my feet. And right off the bat, we're going to start out doing this wrong. There are 3 decals that make up the center section. There's D6 at the top center, D7 at the very center, and D38 that goes in the bottom center. Now I started with the very central decal, and when I go and I place the upper decal later, it becomes hard to place because I can't find the small opening, and there's a very visible seam. I'll show you that in more detail after I mess it up. Also, this is a very long process, so I will be speeding up a lot of this footage to at least double speed. So don't think I'm just flying through here or feel any kind of pressure that you should be able to do this really quick. Take your time. Just nobody wants to sit and watch me do decals for 3 hours. So we just applied a generous amount of microset onto the surface. We're then going to place our decal. We're going to use our tweezers to get it as close to where we want it as possible. Then we're going to come back in with our brush. We're going to get our brush wet, and we're going to slowly just start working the decal down, trying to get any air bubbles out from under it and just move those towards the outer edges so that they can come out from under the decal. Periodically, we're going to redip our brush in the solution. We want to keep this decal as wet as possible until we get everything worked out and we get it as flat as we can. Then we're going to come in with our heat gun. We're going to give it some heat for just a couple of seconds. You don't need much. If you're using a plastic kit, you can warp or melt the plastic. Even on these resin kits, you can blister the decal. That first round of heat helped lock the decal into place so it's less likely to move. Now we're going to hit it with some of the micro sol, and we're going to get the decal really wet again and continue brushing it down with our brush. We're trying to smooth everything out, and again we're trying to work out any air bubbles and get this as flat as possible. Then we're going to hit this with some more heat, and that's going to make that decal softer, more compliant, and easier for us to work down smooth along the surface. Finally, we're going to come in with our cotton bud and we're going to run the cotton bud over the decal. This is going to help us remove any remaining moisture from out from under the decal and just finish smoothing everything out and making sure we have no more air bubbles. In some situations, like a very complex shape, you may need to apply the solution multiple times, apply some heat, brush it down, apply some more solution, some more heat, and continue brushing it. Eventually, it will work down nice and smooth. That will pretty much cover the how to apply a carbon fiber decal section of the video. For the rest of this video, I'm not going to show going through the whole process on every decal. That would be boring and take forever. Instead, I'm going to focus on where I place them, in what order I place them, what makes the most sense, and discuss any issues I encounter and mistakes that I make along the way. After Decal 7, Decal 38 seemed to be the next logical choice. It goes on the lower center section. This is another pretty simple decal. It's pretty much flat and its shape makes logical sense. It is wider at the top than it is at the bottom. It just kind of flows along the lines of the diffuser. Moving on to Decal 6. Like I said at the beginning, you really should place this decal first. There's a small hole in the center of this decal which lines up with a small matching recess on the diffuser. Use that recess to line up the decal and then work it down. Because I didn't start this first, I had a harder time seeing the recess to line it up, and it left a clearly visible line where the decal overlaps Decal 7. If you do this first, then Decal 7 will overlap, but the edge will run right along the edge of the diffuser and will pretty much disappear. So like I said earlier, I've messed this up. And so now that I've got the top piece on, I can show you exactly what went wrong. So you can see there's a lip right there where that piece sits. Now I think this piece actually is supposed to sit a little further up. There is a hole in that piece that should be lined up on the indent right there. I think that might be like a reverse light or something like that. And I couldn't see it because I had this decal down and it covered over it. Those three parts are pretty simple. Some of the side decals are a little more vague. I'm only going to go through the left side as the right side is pretty much identical. We are starting at the top with D5. Looking at it flat on paper, it's a bit of an odd shape, but as soon as I laid it down on the part, it pretty much just fell right into place and runs right along the top outer edge. Next up we have Decal 13. This is going to go on the inside of the left diffuser vane. There is a 90-degree right angle right under the long thin point. If you line this corner up on the top edge of where Decal 38 goes and then line the top edge of this decal along the curve of the diffuser vane, it should go right into place. Now we're going to place decals 34 and 36. These need to go inside this upper recess where the reflector is going to go, not the one for the exhaust tips. This did go in a bit easier than expected. These are a trapezoidal shape, and when you place these, the short edge goes inside the recess and the long edge should line up along the outer edge of that recess. When placed right, the curved edges should line up pretty much perfect with the curves on the side. Now we'll place decal 36 the same way. The short edge goes inside the recess, the long edge lines up along the outer edge, pretty much exactly the same. Our next set of decals are numbers 32 and 33. These are the same number on both sides, and they are pretty much just rectangles. These need to go inside the recesses for the exhaust tips. Now if you look, there's this lip that runs around the recess. Decal 20 has an opening that goes around this recess. I wasn't sure if I should put these in the deeper part of the opening or try to get them to lay around this lip. In the end, I chose to run them around the lip. They don't sit as cleanly, but I still think this is the right call, as when we put decal 20 down later, I found that the opening doesn't go in and cover the lip area, so if I had placed them on that inner part, I'm pretty sure I would have had a band of just gloss black around that opening edge. These were probably some of the more complicated decals. They look easy as they're just straight rectangles, but the area has a lot of curve to it, and I am trying to apply it over that lip. They just didn't want to sit right without a lot of fiddling. They did look a little messy, especially on the ends, but for the most part, the large decal 20 is going to cover most of this mess up. Decal 33 goes right under decal 32, and it's pretty much the same process. We're just going to install it on that lip and try to get it to overlap the ends of decal 32. With those two out of the way, we'll move on to decal 40. This one is kind of odd as it is also going into a recess. One side of the recess is a sharp edge. The other side is more of a sloping curve. And there's only one decal. Now I chose to place it on the sloping curve as I figured that would be the more visible of the two surfaces. Unlike 34 and 36, this time I placed the rounded edge towards the outside. It seemed to flow more naturally with the swoops and curves of this surface. That is going to leave us with decal 20, which is this large decal with this opening. This opening goes around the exhaust port, and that's the best way to align the decal. You align the exhaust port opening, then tweak the rest of its position so that it lines up along the edge of the center decals. Now this one takes quite a bit of work to get to lay down. It is a large decal with a lot of complex, curving, flowing surfaces underneath it, and it really does not like that bottom outside corner at all. Additionally, there are no openings in the decal for the upper and lower recesses, and there's nothing in the instructions suggesting you need to cut the decal. But this decal really isn't going to conform into those openings without making relief cuts. So you want to position the decal where you want it, work it with the microset and the brush and the cotton bud to lock it into position. We're going to come in with our scalpel and we're going to make our cut for the lower recess. We want to cut the decal straight along that sharp, flat lower edge, then work the decal some more so that it lays down flat onto the swooping side of the recess. Next, we will make a cut in this outer corner that just does not want to lay down and conform. This cut should allow the decal to lay down smoother, although it will cause the decals to overlap a little bit. I, however, really mangled this one up and ended up tearing the decal along this outer edge. After mangling the crap out of that side edge, we want to come back with our scalpel and make another relief cut for the upper recess for this reflector. We'll then work the decal down into the recess using some heat and some more solution. I'm going to finish the other side up off camera and we will take a look at the final result. Alright guys, I am back and the other side is complete and this is our final result. So all in all, not bad. This side did come out better because I had the experience of doing this side first. The only real issue I had over here was this corner, and again I just went in and I made a relief cut right here. I folded this bit in and then folded this side over, and you can see the seam, but it's not horrible. It's much better than this side over here. Now I did come in and somewhat fix this side so it's nowhere near as bad as it looked before. Alpha Models gives you this section of carbon fiber right here as spare carbon fiber. I really wish they'd give us more. I had used up most of this already. The rear spoiler, which is the little black kind of D-shaped piece at the back, should be in carbon fiber, and they don't give you a carbon fiber decal for it. I mean, you could get it in black, but if you're speccing everything in carbon, you would have specced that in carbon as well. So I had already used most of this to make the carbon decal for that. But I did have enough to cut a couple of small pieces and use them to patch over. So when the light hits it, you can definitely see, but from a distance, sitting on the shelf, and this being on the bottom of the car, you're not going to notice it as much unless you're just absolutely looking for it. So lessons learned on this is start from the top center, not from the very center, so that you can get that lined up on that hole, and then put this piece in and it will overlap and line right up along the edge so you won't see the seam. And be prepared to make relief cuts right through here, because this corner is not going to want to lay down. It's going to want to wrinkle and bulge, and it will look bad. Another option would be to go through and just use these as templates and cut the decals out of Scale Motorsport carbon fiber. Scale Motorsport's carbon is thinner, it conforms better, and even if it wrinkles, it doesn't look bad, as opposed to this stuff is a thick and it's a little hard to get down sometimes. But all in all, even using the carbon fiber from Alpha, it's not a bad piece. It just takes a lot of time and patience. I am by far not an expert. I'm not saying that this is an instructional absolute how to do it and make it look perfect. I just thought someone should do a video that shows how to get these down, because Alpha's instructions are very vague. Like, you have to guess is that those actually go in those holes and not like over the flat pieces. Alright guys, that is going to be a wrap. From here, I need to just do a couple other things and then I'll be ready for clear coat, and then I can start looking at chassis and suspension pieces or the interior. I'm still not sure what color I'm going to do the interior. I know it's probably going to be a brown. I don't know if it's going to be a tan, like a light tan, or if it's going to be a dark chocolate. Maybe a mix of the two. Who knows? Thanks for hanging out with me. I always appreciate you watching the videos, and I will catch you guys on the next one.